Welcome back. They seem to be wanting to do something.
Well, they have been wanting to do something for the last 10, 20 years.
Well, he now says they're going to.
But, you know, I mean, but there's been, for instance, a chief litigation officer. And the Solicitor General is going to be, you know, another variation of the story. But I take...
That's been an acting position.
Well, acting, well, but...
We have not had leadership there. That's just the reality.
You know...
yes?
When I was an attorney, and I'm talking now in the 80s, we, in our office, we had a simple rule. Look at all the divisions in the country and spot who has been admitted as a black advocate. Put them on the roster.
And help them in their careers.
Most of the judges, even in the Constitutional Court, are beneficiaries of that policy.
No,
we had a lot of work, especially political work. And we had raised funds.
Well, could I just ask you this? I accept that. Do you accept, however, that given apartheid, there may be cases where if one is in trouble, whether it's the minister or one of his government associates, etc., that there might well be a white advocate is the best suited for that particular point?
No, in fact, that's the point I was going to make, that you can see the range of advocates I was briefing. I mean, Jeremy Gauntlet was my discovery as early as the 80s.
Yeah.
But it would be Jeremy Gauntlet, it would be a Square, it would be a Poswa, it would be a Vuka Chabalala, it would be a Mseneke, Sminya, all across Dala Omar. We had a roster, and we knew that we will first brief these black advocates who first come. We have just come into the profession.
But you wouldn't have briefed them for a very complicated case when they first came into the profession. You may have briefed someone like Dennis Cooney or one of those folks who did an enormous amount of work during the 1980s.
In fact, you make a good point there. Mahomet, for instance. Yeah. Mahomet was, as you will know, he had this junior who was a perpetual junior, white junior.
Yes, I know. You're talking about Clifford Mailer. Yes,
Clifford
absolutely.
Mailer. And until I said to him, listen, Ishmael, in this case, you are going to lead so-and-so. And you know, he came upon me like a ton of bricks.
Yes.
And I said, you are going to lead Maleka. And he's in your division. And he said, who's this Maleka? I'm not going to. I said, he is there. You are either going to be a senior counsel in this brief and lead Maleka, or get out of the brief.
So Paul, following that, isn't it so that there's got to be some leaders who are from the profession? We can't just wait for the education system somehow to percolate through. I accept readily your point about the education system, but the question is... All right, Minister wants to challenge me, so challenge me first before I put it to Paul.
No, I think I really want to challenge the education question. We have many young qualified graduates coming through university. We go through the same universities, we get the same degrees, we get sometimes better results than some of our white counterparts. Why must the issue of education continue to be exploited?
It's a very good, I stand corrected, and in fact...
Right now we have one of the best trained pupils who go through a rigorous pupillage program. They are sitting, and some of them leave because they don't get work.
No, you've made an important point, and I wanted to put it to Paul Hoffman. Paul, I think that is an important point, and I stand corrected to this extent that because I still teach at the University of Cape Town, I see what happens. And it's absolutely true. There are lots of very talented people who come through the system, black students. So we aren't doing enough, because why aren't they percolating through?
Well, I still stick with the point that if Arthur Chaskelson's suggestion that there be internship for a year after graduating would have solved a lot of the problems of assimilating newcomers into the system whose grandfather was not the Chief Justice and whose father is not an attorney, and all of that sort of problem that one has.
I don't want to let them. I accept that, but I think what I'm being challenged to put to you, to be quite frank, is that there are talented people there. I'm not suggesting that your proposal isn't a good one. I've also thought that a better proposal, a good proposal, would also be having broader clerkships for people coming out of universities right across the board in relation to judges. Again, a transformative measure. But the point being put is that there are talented people coming through, and somehow they aren't getting into the system because there are skewed briefing patterns. They're not being given a chance.
Well, I don't think you can blame the advocates for that. That is really in the hands of the attorneys. The advocates have a cab rank rule.
No, you can
If they're available and the brief comes, they take it.
Well, all right. Minister, you wanted to say something.
I really want to say this. First of all, there's a lot of distortions. And it's all, I mentioned the elephant in the room. The reality is that South Africa is still a very much racially divided society. What's even worse is that you find black successful captains of industry who still believe themselves that despite they having succeeded being black, don't have confidence in other blacks.
Well, that's the Margaret Thatcher syndrome in relation to women, yes.
Black practitioners being given opportunity. So there is a syndrome that we have to quarantine our society out of.
But can I just push you? There are things like internships. There are things like putting more money so that judges get clerks across the board, that we can fast forward people. I mean, surely there's a lot of imaginative things that could be done. Because whether we like it or not, we are fighting a whole range of stereotypes. Accept that we have to break them in all sorts of imaginative ways. And your department has to do it.
I can only agree with you. You see,
You're not supposed
even
to
you. No, I have to agree with you because you're correct. That's the way to go. Because if you look at your successful white practitioners today, they've also been through mentoring. They've also been through all sorts of support. Why don't we talk about that? You know, so it's not about your race. It's about whether you have had the kind of support systems that enable you to succeed. And that is the challenge that we're looking at currently as government. If I had an opportunity, I'd outline a whole number of interventions that we're working on.
Thank you. Can I just ask you one final question? I know you've been grumpy with the minister, although he's been answering you this evening. What about the private sector? Surely, what are you doing in relation to them? You can't just let them give a free pass, surely?
No, we can't. But
so what are you doing?
Unless we take a decision and see whether there is no basis at law to challenge them on their briefing patterns, and I think we're trying.
What about moral suasion? Have you spoken to them?
Look, you don't extirpate racism or stereotypes by appealing to a conscience that may not even be there.
The question that we've got to deal with here is, it's not just about the briefing patterns. It's about the transformation of the profession. And I think Advocate Ntsebeza made a point that I want to hold on to. It's about how do you broaden the pool so that we continue to develop the judiciary that both reflects the demography of the country, by and large, and at the same time produces the jurisprudence which our Constitution demands of it. Those are very big challenges, and they cannot succeed unless we start thinking, how are we going to deal with these problems? It's not surprising, of course, is it, that given 300 years of racist rule, this is going to be a problem, but it's a problem we have to confront, we have to deal with, and we have to solve. And we've had quite a lot of interesting proposals from all three of the panelists this evening as to how to do that. Well, for that, you can judge for yourself. Goodbye.